Namaste. Welcome to our 88th talk on the Bhagavad Gita. Here in the very final chapter, the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we're ready now to look at the 40th verse. Now, all through the Gita, we've been hearing about the three gunas. And this and that is of this guna and of that guna. Here's the symptoms of the various gunas. It's really pervading the Gita because these are bedrock uh, realities of our experience, physically and mentally, and therefore spiritually. So, Krishna says, there is no being either on earth nor yet in heaven among the gods, even in the great higher astral worlds, that can exist free from these three gunas born of Prakriti. Shakti. There's Prakriti, and then there's Purusha, the true self, the supreme being, and the individual eternal beings within the great one being. And if we're in the world of Prakriti, and we have to be, if you can hear me and I can speak to you, we cannot be free of these. Therefore, the logical thing is we cultivate sattva at all times because sattva alone leads to liberation. Tamas blinds, rajas binds, and sattva liberates, frees us. Very important thing to realize. So then, now what are we going to talk about? Of the Brahmins, the Kshatrias, and the Vaishyas, as also the Sudras. Okay, we're talking about the castes. We're not talking about the caste system. There's a caste system, that's a social order created artificially. There is casteism, prejudices relating to caste and all kinds of false ideas about, wrong ideas about caste. But caste, varna, exists. Varna means color. It means vibration, because that's what colors are. They're vibrations. So sometimes Thomas is considered black, Rajas red, and Sattva white. Brightness. So this is in everyone, these three vibrations. So then, back. Of the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, and the Vaishyas, as also the Shudras, the duties are distributed. Krishna's going to tell us we've got to do something. You can't get away from it. People love purely intellectual philosophy, especially if it's simple, meaning it doesn't relate to life and won't affect their life, and they're not expected to do anything. Now, the word duties I made a note at the end of the translation, and I want to read you the note. In this section of verses, duty is the usual translation of actions, karma, and cannot be objected to. But in these verses, it also means the actions that will be done by the different castes impelled by their innate nature, their swabhava. In other words, they can't help it, they'll do it. Which means you can think that you've got a kitty cat, but if it stinks, it's a skunk. The innate nature is going to come out and you're going to find what it is. I actually there was a book about a man's adventures in Africa, and he said he was going down. It wasn't pitch dark; it was a very dark road, and he saw a thing coming for him, a small animal, and he said that it kind of had kind of two green. He saw greeny, shining eyes. He thought it was a cat. Well, he was American, and even though it was Africa and it might be a wild cat, it didn't occur. So he reached down to pet it, and suddenly it changed and mouthed out and had 8 legs, and you realize it was a gigantic, foot-high spider. He got out quickly. so, so you see, we sometimes have to be careful to make sure we're seeing a thing as it is. So the Gita keeps trying to give us this clear sight. So these are the things that will be done and the qualities revealed spontaneously by the various castes. Caste is not determined by action, but action is produced by the innate caste nature of the swabhava. In other words, there are 4 swabhavas, forms of self-consciousness or self-concepts. The energies of our innate energies of ourself according to our level of evolution. This is important. Like this, what's being described takes in our entire psychology, but also not just our minds, but our emotions and even our physical vibration and constitution. It's really important to realize this and understand we're now talking about something really big. All right. Again, we have Brahmins, Kshatrias, Vaishyas, and Sudras, and the way they behave, it says they're distributed according to the qualities of their swabhava, but the swabhava, you see, will make them do these things, even if they say, I don't want to. They eventually will. Okay, now ready. Now, you and I have a caste. I couldn't believe it. I knew 2 people that pretended to be devotees of Anandamayi Ma. They went several times to see Ma. And Ma even told them what to do. Of course, they didn't do it or anything. And Ma even talked to them about reading scriptures. So one time I was talking with them. I considered them my friends. And I asked about something about the Gita. And of all things, one of them said, "Oh, we don't read the Gita." I said, "Why ever not?" Well, the Gita talks about caste, and we don't have a caste. So the Gita is irrelevant. Now think of all the things the Gita talks about that has nothing to do with caste. But they latched onto that. Remember what it says a tamasic person is like? They act like one thing is the whole thing. So they latched on to one little thing, well, big thing, but one thing in the Gita. And that meant they didn't have to, they could ignore the whole Gita. Now that, friends, is tamoguna, tamas, so kind of perfected that it indicates a spiritually hopeless individual. So people do, and yes. I've had people announcing what their caste was, and I figured out what it was is they read the descriptions. They thought that's what I'd like to be. So since I'd like to be that, that's what I am. Well, it's a little more than that. Okay, now let's go. Now we're going to find out who's what. Tranquility, self-restraint, self-discipline, being really in control of oneself. Tapasya, practicing spiritual discipline, number 1, meditation. Purity also in the sense of shocha, cleanliness, and of course, purity of mind, a purity of diet. There's no use talking about any of this if you eat meat or you smoke, you use tobacco, you have nicotine or whatever. God, one hopes not marijuana and so on, alcohol and so on. This is utterly impure. So wallow with the hogs in the mud and enjoy yourself. Leave the Gita alone. It has nothing to do with you. Tranquility, self restraint, tapasya, purity, patience, the ability to really endure. It isn't just not letting people upset you if they do something you don't like. It means patience in the sense you don't give up. You don't say, well, when's it going to end? You just keep moving on steadily. Uprightness, correctness of thinking, correctness of living, correctness of speaking, being a moral and honorable and a worthy person. Knowledge, yes, not dumb and not ignorant, both intelligent and having knowledge that you can apply your intelligence to. Realization, already insight of some form, which is awakening, you see, of your inner consciousness. So you come to really understand things. I've mentioned how the thing that began for me was one time, bam, like a lightning, I understood. I had never believed before. I understood reincarnation, karma, evolution of consciousness, and the existence of many worlds according to the levels of our consciousness. That was totally absent from anything I knew. Now, I'd heard about reincarnation and said, well, if it's reincarnation, duh, why don't I remember? Well, you know something? I don't remember when I was 2 months old, but I was 2 months old. I had a friend that said she couldn't remember anything before she was 6 years old. So she didn't exist till she was six. She didn't say that because she'd been an idiot. Well, those who say there can't be reincarnation because I don't remember, they're idiots also. Oh, negative. Yeah, and that's a negative thing to be, a negative condition to be in. You know, when it's poison, you say it's poison. You don't say, oh, I don't want to be negative. Actually, that's vitamin B. You'd be crazy. So, okay, get on with it, Abbot George. Swami Nirmalananda, whoever you are. And belief in God. Oh, they're moral. You can trust. They're very truthful. They're charitable, but they don't really believe in God. Then they ain't. Okay? These are the duties, qualities of Brahmins born to their swabhava. Now, anyone who thinks they're spiritual would claim to be Brahmins, but they don't have all this. They're not. So, valor, courage, yes, guts, endurance, splendor. Actually, being a person that others can admire, being a person that shines like a light in the world and is an embodiment of virtue and justice. Steadfastness, not changing. A lot of people are tamasic, they don't change, but they're not stable. They're just dead. Skill, real abilities at things, and doing things exactly as they should be for the right purpose and accomplishing it. Being, yes, talented. Not fleeing in battle. That, of course, not running away like a coward, but also means not fleeing from your duty, not fleeing from what is necessary, though unpleasant, not refusing to face the truth, not refusing to understand, yes, this has to be done, and I will do it. It's interesting, the word courage is not used here, but that's definitely what we're talking about. Generosity in every way, a giving nature, an open nature, and lordliness of spirit, nobility. This is part of what an Arya is, one who is moving and striving upward. Yes, we should be, in a sense, aristocrats of the spirit. A lord is a controller, so you rule your spirit, but a lord is also admirable and has an integrity. That's really, that wouldn't have been a bad English expression, but here, integrity of spirit are the duties of Kshatrias born of their swabhava. But it's again the characteristics. So, which are we so far? Agriculture, cow herding, and trade are the duties of the Vaishyas. Now you understand this is a pre-industrial revolution time that's being described. But trade of any kind are the duties of the Vaishyas born of their swabhava. And the Shudra's duty is doing service. This means their idea is doing service, helping people, and so on. That's what even Brahmins are to be doing. It means working for another person, being an employee, which is honorable also. Good work done, again, under the supervision of another person. But that does not make it in any way of less value. So, this doing this born of their swabhava, this is what all the people do. It's not like, well, I want to be a Brahmin, I'll act like a Brahmin. No. What fits you? Because you see, your swabhava is very easy. Now we can be lazy and we can think, well, spiritually doing nothing is sort of is easy for me. Well, so is death. You're gone. You're dead. Of course, you're in another world, but then you really don't have any duties or you don't have any troubles in this world anymore. So, guess what? We're nearly 3 minutes over the time. So, tune in next time. And I'll be talking how to be happy in your own swabhava, because that's the next verse. So, it's just waiting there for you. Until then, namaste. Namaste.